Welcome to Cashflow Savannah, episode 24. Today we have on the podcast a very special guest, Al Romero. He is a former Army Ranger. How you doing today, Chandler? You ready?
I am doing good. I love talking about some house hacking. Super creative way to get into real estate.
I do too. Al is house hacking, and he's also um, talks quite a bit about using VA loans to invest. We love talking to other veterans. We have many of them here in Savannah. So without further ado, here's our special guest, Al Romero. Welcome to Cashflow Savannah, Al Romero. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Looks like it's some nice weather over there in Savannah.
Yes, it is a very warm October day today. It's going to be in the low 80s.
That's awesome. I am currently out here in Denver, Colorado, and it's 31 degrees. Thankfully, it's sunny, but we have some snow outside.
Well, you're giving a great you're giving a great commercial there for Savannah. Al, I had the pleasure of meeting you at Bigger Pockets, and you used to live in Savannah. You were stationed right here at Hunter Army Air Force Base. And I said, you've got to come on our podcast because we have a lot of listeners who are active duty military. They're stationed at Hunter, they're stationed at Fort Stewart. We manage for several people that actually are currently deployed. Like, I know you have a lot of roots here in Savannah, and you're a really fantastic real estate investor. We're so excited to get to know your story. Can you just kind of give us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I am originally from Denver, Colorado, born and raised. I did serve in Savannah, Georgia, Hunter Army Airfield for 5 years with the 75th Ranger Regiment, which is a special operations unit. I was deployed 3 times while I was with the 75th Ranger Regiment. But really, my story kind of starts, in 2016. I was 21, and I had about $25,000 in debt. And I kind of felt like I was suffocating at that point. I was never really taught financial literacy from my parents. And so I had a lot of debt that had stacked up, just making bad decisions. And then finally, I found this book called The Total Money Makeover. I read that book, and it really helped me to understand money concepts. So once I started to understand money concepts and how to actually handle money the right way, I decided to join the military and make a really big change in my life so that I can tackle the debt and become financially independent. So that was where I started. Savannah obviously is a beautiful city, and I really wanted to invest in Savannah, and I almost did when I lived there in 2019. I almost bought a property right off of Hunter Army Airfield, and I think it was $100,000.
Oh.
Right?
Missed out.
Yeah, I didn't end up purchasing that, but I ended up purchasing a deal in Denver, Colorado.
Wow.
And at that time, it was 2020, and I was actually in Afghanistan at that time. And that was when I was debating between purchasing the property in Savannah for $100,000 or purchasing a property in Denver that I knew needed a lot of work, and I knew I was getting it at a discount. So basically, I had a family member reach out to me while I was in Afghanistan, and they were, I was telling them how I wanted to buy some real estate, right? And they let me know that one of their friends was actually, in the middle of getting a divorce, and they were trying to sell very quickly. So I was like, that sounds great. So I got the contact info for that friend, and I reached out to them. And we came to an agreement at $225,000. So at that time, the house appraised for $300,000. And that was in 2020. We didn't use any realtors, and that was kind of my selling point too. Hey, you won't have to pay any realtors anything. I'll write the contract. We'll make it work, just us. And we did. So basically, let me know if I'm going too far, if you guys want to ask
Right.
any questions too. But so basically, I got out of the military in 2021 and I came back to Denver, Colorado, and I started to do work on the property. Prior to joining the military, I was a residential plumber
Wow.
doing construction. So I did that for about 3 years and I got my residential plumbing license. And so I had knowledge about how to fix houses, what to do. So I ended up putting about $50,000 into the first property that I bought. And I did a majority of that work myself. I had to replace, some of the plumbing, had to do some major updates in that house. It took me about 2.5 months, and I was able to get it to appraise. Once I was done, I did a cash out refinance, and it appraised for 550,000.
Wow.
Right, and
Man.
remember the purchase price was 225,
Oh,
all
okay.
in 275. So I was able to pull out the 50,000 that I put into it.
So, Al, what made you choose the Denver market over the Savannah market? Because you had two houses and you obviously chose the one that was more expensive. Would you say it's because of your network that you had? Is that what made you pull the trigger there in the more expensive market? Or how did you make that decision?
So I would say I know that Denver is an appreciating market, right? A high appreciating market, much more than the average. And I knew I was getting a deal at a discount, which really swayed me to purchase the Denver property over the Savannah property. At the time, though, I wish I would have gotten both, right? Looking, hindsight 2020, I wish I would have purchased both.
So I want to back up with you. You read the book and you're $25,000 in debt. I want to go there and kind of ask, like, what'd you do from there to get out of that $25,000 in debt?
Yeah, usually people get in debt while in the military. I was surprised when you said you joined the military to get rid of the debt. I was like, oh, that's a first.
So basically, I was $25,000 in debt. I joined the military, and when you go through basic training and airborne school, ranger selection program, during those times you're really not spending a lot of money because you're locked up the majority of the time, right? Which is one thing that really helped me. But not only that, even once I reached Hunter Army Airfield with the 75th Ranger Regiment, I was the very odd one out, where all of my friends were buying Camaros.
Right.
Yeah.
And I walked everywhere for about 2.5 years.
Really?
I walked everywhere. I bought a bike also, but I walked everywhere in Savannah. To go get my groceries, I walked back to the barracks.
Wow.
Not only that, I didn't go out on the weekends with my friends. I also didn't go out to eat. I tried to cook every single meal. So very much the stereotypical Dave Ramsey approach,
Right.
where I try to cut costs in every aspect of my life. Also even subscriptions, right? I cut out all subscriptions, and my goal was to save as much money as possible every single month. And I kind of made it a game with myself. Like if I could cut out this, I could save even more here. So by the time I was exiting the military, I'd saved about over $100,000 cash. And I also bought some investments as well.
Wow, you are unique, Al. I have never heard, well, maybe one or two, but you're rare. That's fantastic. And may I say, for those of you who are not familiar with Savannah, Hunter Army Airfield is right in the middle of Midtown, I would say, kind of South Side. So it actually, I mean, if you're going to live in the Southeast and have a bike and you're not in a major giant city, you picked the right spot because you could get to the mall. You can get to a decent amount of restaurants by bicycle within 15 minutes or something. I mean, you wouldn't, it might take a while longer to get to the historic district, but that's so cool. Like, I really respect that. Do you ever get people that see that you have real estate and go, oh, must be nice, like it was easy? And do you want to just like punch them in the nose? Because you really sacrificed.
Yeah, I think people will always see results and, maybe think that, oh, well, you got lucky, right? But they don't see all of the sacrifice that I had to make in order to just get to that point. Where I was walking and all of my friends were going out on the weekends, they were eating dinners at restaurants every single night. And I really didn't go anywhere. I worked out. That was my hobby. And, went for long walks and listened to podcasts like Bigger Pockets.
Right.
And, all of that really helped me. But yeah, a lot of people will say it's luck. But yeah, I think it's diligent work and continuing to, coming up with a plan and taking small steps towards that plan consistently.
So do you think the military, when joining, that kind of helped you like have some discipline? Because I know some people are like, yeah, it really helped me with discipline, and I was able to just stay disciplined to save that money. I mean, some people obviously don't, but you had a goal to save, and do you think the military helped with that?
I do think the military did help instill discipline.
Yeah.
And, you really do have to be disciplined to pass Ranger selection.
Oh yeah.
Because it's very difficult to beat you down quite a lot. And, for example, I think my class started with 250 people and we finished with about 42.
Wow.
Really? Yeah.
So very high attrition rate there. And yes, I really do think it helped me be disciplined, but I don't think the military really helped me save money because a lot of people in the military community are, they like to spend a lot,
Right.
and they also don't have, money management skills or, financial education in order to manage their money, which is kind of a big thing where I think the military lacks right now.
Well,
Yeah.
I've talked to active duty and they say it happens almost every day, weekly. A guy will roll in a new car. And the question is always, how high is your interest rate? And the person that told me this said it was going, sometimes you'd hear him in the low 20s and people would just be like, whoa. And I'm like, well, investors are the same way. I mean, if Chandler bought a house tomorrow, I would say, Chandler, what interest rate did you get? But it's kind of in an opposite manner, obviously. But yeah, it was from what I have heard I've never been in the military, but from what I have heard, it's almost a sport to find out who blew money, in what manner. It's sad, unfortunately. Did you see a lot of that?
A lot. I had friends, when I was in airborne school, go out and buy, and we're not even supposed to be buying vehicles at that time because we're not at our, our station yet. I would see people go out and buy, a Ford Mustang, brand new, 23% interest or something crazy like that.
23.
Depreciating asset.
That's a record.
That's a depreciating asset. And I mean, you might as well put it on your Amex. I think I get 24% APR on my Amex. At least I get.
Yeah, exactly. And the sad thing is that those car dealers actually look for military and they cater to military because they know that they're going to get approved. They know that their chain of command is going to make sure that they're paying that bill.
Mm-hmm.
But, a lot of people put themselves in a bad situation, before they even make it to their home station. And, now they're behind the game. But I think educating our military on money management and how to invest.
Yeah.
What real estate investments are good real estate investments,
Yeah.
right?
I think a lot of because the younger guys joining the military always kind of get caught in that habit. I mean, even when I was playing baseball and everybody was getting paid, um, the first thing they go buy is a car, and you just don't know any better. And then you kind of just do the same thing the next person did, and it kind of just trickles down until you finally go, huh, I just spent $30,000 and it's just gone now. And you finally go, all right, so how should I make my money work? Sometimes you just have to make that mistake and go broke until you actually figure it out. Kind of like you did. You're $25,000 in debt, and you're like, how do I got to figure it out.
I have a good friend. She calls it stupid tax. She's like, yeah, I paid my stupid tax. And they're just overpaying or paying tons of interest on something they shouldn't have bought. And I'm like, that's a really good way to say it, in my opinion.
I like that. That's good. I bought a bunch of those before I figured out real estate. So
So tell us about your portfolio now, Al. Do you still have the one house? Have you added any others? Also, my other question with your first house, you let it sit until you came home, and how long did it sit until you came and got it going?
So I bought it in 2020, and I bought it with a second home loan because I was stationed in Savannah, Georgia. So it could not be a primary residence. And I also at that time I was in Afghanistan. So I bought it with a second home loan. I wrote up the contract myself to buy the house, and purchase price was 225. So basically, after the sellers moved out of the property, I put a tenant in the property from the time that they left till I think their lease expired in June, and then I was back in July.
Wow.
So it was a really good thing that I was able to place a tenant in there, or else I mean, but at that time, I mean, my mortgage was about $1,200, which I could afford. It's just $1,200 that I wouldn't be saving every single month.
Right.
And so I put a tenant in there, and then when I got back in 2021, I basically fix it up. I live there while I fix it up, which is just like living in a construction zone. I don't know if you've ever done that. So yeah, fix that up. And then after I refinanced into a primary residence loan. So I had to live in that property for 12 months before I got into my next property. Right. So 21 to 2022. And then
1 second, I'm sorry. So, this is interesting. I've never heard someone say this. So you flipped it into a primary residence loan, which is essentially, did you do a cash out refi? Did you get 80% of the 550? Did you take out of that? Or tell us about the loan process when you switched loans?
So yep, it was a second home loan.
Right.
And I refinanced into a primary residence loan, and I also did a cash out refi, and I only pulled $50,000 from the equity, right? Because I didn't want to take all the equity out, or because at that time I didn't know what I was going to do next. I knew I was going to buy another house, but I also had some cash saved up, and I also had some investments, so I was in a good spot. So I just pulled out the 50,000 that I put into it. I left the rest of the equity in the property. Hindsight, though, I should have gotten a HELOC while I was living there, because it's a little bit more difficult to get a HELOC on an investment property,
right,
when you're not living there. So basically, I got that 50,000. I lived there for a year, and I house hacked it. So I had 4 bedrooms, and I rented 3 of them. So at that time, I was making about $600 cash flow after expenses, house hacking it. And that's my mortgage is paid. I'm living for free, and I'm making about $600 living there. So
Very cool.
after that,
Well, and I'm sorry, Al, to interrupt you 1 second. Just for the listener, and Al's absolutely right. Like the best way, if you don't want to do a full cash out refi, the best way to access the equity in your home is a HELOC. I have one on my home, and it's allowed me to have cash for down payments or maybe to buy a property in cash. It's treated like cash. A HELOC you can pull out at any time and pay back at any time. And it's very easy to get a HELOC on your primary. And the bank that I used, Truist, if anyone's in the Southeast, they didn't even charge us loan fees. They said, as long as you keep it open for 3 years, you don't even pay loan closing costs on the HELOC, which was a very big advantage. So anyway, I just want to add that info for the listener, because, obviously as investors, we always use debt. So I like to make sure, I agree with you. You should have gotten a HELOC, but I'm sure you can get one on the one you're in now too. It's not like all is lost. But anyway, I'm sorry, Al.
no worries. So I lived there for a year, house hacked it, was cash flowing, and also saving that money that I was making off the income from the tenants. So after that, I purchased the house that I'm in now, which is a 6-bedroom, 3-bath. Wow. And this one is in Inglewood, Colorado. And the purchase price was $560. I used my VA loan on this one.
Okay.
And purchase price was $560. And at that time, interest rates, I think, were about 7-ish. So what I did is I had the sellers increase the purchase price to $580. And I used that $20,000 to pay down the interest rate, which now is like 4.6, which is a lot better. And it really helps me to cash flow. So now, right, 6 bedrooms. Right now, I rent the upstairs. There's 2, so it's 2-1, 2-1, and 2-1, right? In Colorado, we have basements. I know in Savannah, I don't think basements are a thing. Is that right?
No
Well, that
basement.
would be a nice, water catch for the water. You'd have a nice, maybe swimming pool. Yeah, we can't go below ground. It is wet down there.
Okay. So, yep, it's 3 stories, 2-1 on the top, 2-1 on the main floor, and then 2-1 in the basement.
Great layout.
So, yeah, so I live in the basement. And I have 1 bedroom as my office, and then I have the other bedroom as my bedroom where I sleep. The upstairs, those rooms rent for $1,000 each, right? And there's a shared bathroom, which is perfect. And then on the main floor, the bedrooms down on the main floor rent for $900 each. So basically, $3,800 is what's coming in. The mortgage is $3,600,
Okay.
and then also the utilities about $500 total. Roughly, I kind of budget for $500. So I mean, if you think about it, I'm in $300, but I'm living for free. I have an office. I have some space to myself. But I really want to give all the credit to house hacking. Because house hacking is a strategy that you can make work in most markets. Savannah, Georgia would be a perfect place to house hack if you are an active duty, military member, and you're looking to get into real estate. If you can buy a single family house, what you want to look for is high bedroom count, high bathroom count, so that you don't have 4 tenants sharing 1 bathroom or something like that. But it's a great way to get into the real estate market, and it's you can replicate it. You can house hack every single year. So it is an excellent strategy to build wealth in real estate.
Very smart. Well, and may I say too, once you moved into your home that you're in now, you're now getting another $1,000 a month off of the prior home.
2,000.
I'd say you're coming out pretty well there.
Yeah.
Here in Savannah, in a lot of houses because I'm an agent. So I do a lot of showings and we don't have basements. But I have seen so many houses. I know you have too, Chandler, huge attic. And it would not take a ton to make it a nice attic and hopefully throw a bathroom up there. And there's your extra 1 or 2 bedrooms. But even if you just did a studio with a bathroom in the attic, that's another $1,000 a month right there. So every market has a way.
For sure. I want to ask how do you advertise to get the tenants in there?
So what I advertise on is Facebook Marketplace is a big one. Also, I join every Facebook Rent by the Room group. Out here in Denver, there's probably about like 8 or 10, right? And I join all of them, and some of them have up to like 30,000 members. I don't know if all 30,000 are active, but if you can find one of the groups in your market, right, say Savannah, Georgia, that is Rent by the Room, or people looking for a place to stay. Sometimes people move into a new area and they just need a place to stay and they want to rent a room, right? So those are great places to market for tenants, and I've had no trouble getting my rooms filled with just that strategy. So
your rent almost seems kind of low for Denver. It seems like $1,000 is a deal. Is that the going rate? I feel like you could get more. Am I crazy?
You're not crazy, and I think I can definitely get more. But my plan is to eventually raise rents. But I have some really great tenants right now, which is why I'm okay with maybe coming out maybe $300 negative just on the utilities. But if you think about it, I'm saving money living here by not having to pay a mortgage, not having to pay, like, say, if I was living in an apartment, right, I would be paying money to a landlord, but I'm really paying myself. Well, my tenants are paying for my mortgage while I live here, and I plan to do it again next year into another property.
That's great. Well,
I want to ask, when you're like running your numbers, do you just run your numbers based on everything house hacking, or do you have other exit strategies? Or like what's your kind of plan on that?
So when I ran the numbers for the second property, I did run the numbers off house hacking. However, if I was to rent this house as a midterm, or rent it just a long-term rental, I would be able to get the mortgage covered in this area. It's a really nice area where I'm living. So the rents are pretty high in Denver. So I would be able to get it covered, which is good. So multiple exit strategies, yes, that's very important to plan for, and make sure that you're not just focusing on one strategy. Say, like, if I was just all Airbnb, then that wouldn't be a good way to run the numbers on a property. You want to make sure that you have multiple ways to exit, and I also have equity in the property, which is awesome.
And another thing I want to ask is, I was just thinking that's a big house, so it's a lot of cars. Is that something you take into account, or is it a big driveway? I don't know if it's 1 or 2 people per room. Is it couples, or is it just one person per room?
So one person per room, and everyone does have a car, right? So if you think about it, that's 5 cars. So the garage is a 2-car garage. So 2 people park in the garage. And then also it's not on a busy street. So 2 people park on the in front of the house. And then I park right on the left-hand side of the garage, which leaves space for the 2 cars to exit. So it does work out. If I had, maybe one more car in here, it would be a little bit difficult to make it work, but I'm sure I can still make it work.
Yeah.
Are you charging extra for that garage space?
I am.
Good.
Heck yeah.
So, yeah, also when you are house hacking, just make sure that you're paying attention to whether or not you're in an HOA, because HOAs sometimes have rules on the number of cars that you can have in front of your house, and also the number of unrelated people that you can have living together.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Sometimes if you're in like a nicer area and there's bigger houses and HOAs, some of those neighbors can just be a pain in the butt. And have you run into that, or is it just they're pretty cool?
So for me, I stay out of HOAs.
Okay.
Right? One, I don't want to pay the HOA fee, the monthly fee, and number two, HOAs have a lot of rules that really would make it more difficult to house hack. Like I've said, the number of cars that can be in your driveway, or the number of cars that can be in front of your house, or not only that, they may have some rules about renting your house, right? Those tenants have to adhere to those rules as well. It just makes it a lot more difficult to house hack. So I try to stay away from HOAs. I love the neighborhoods in HOAs, but I try to stay away from them just so that they're not interfering with my house hacking.
Very smart.
Really smart, because the thing about in Savannah is I'm trying to think, like 6 bedrooms. Downtown Savannah has a lot of big houses like that with no HOAs. I feel like most like big houses like that just have an HOA. It just kind of can be tough to find. But
Oh yeah.
On the outskirts, probably it would work.
Yeah.
Nothing new. Anything new is going to be an HOA. I totally.
So
And Al, I can't resist. Okay, forgive me, but I've been a property manager for many years and an investor, and it bothers me that you're not pushing your rents. I do think you need to push your rents every year, even if it's $25 to $50. And I've had deals where, and it's going to happen to all of us, where we buy a deal and it's just okay, or maybe it's negative cash flowing, but it is your job to push the rents. Cost of living goes up. So I would keep it close to market, but if you really love your tenants and you're okay supplementing their lifestyle, at least do $50 every year, because you just think how year after year that's going to make a huge difference in your budget. And you've got 10 tenants. That's, if you did $50, that's $500 a month. That's $6,000 a year. That really adds up. So I just want to encourage you don't have to go $600 increase in rent, but and make it the same for everyone. Then you're not going to cause controversy, and then when the new guy comes in, he's going to be paying at market rent too. Like, let's say everybody's at 900 or whatever, the second floor is at 900, third floor is at 1,000, they go up 50, but another guy moves in, he moves in at 1,050 on that third floor. So you can keep it fair. But I would encourage you to keep pushing those rents, especially having great tenants. They're going to understand your property taxes are going up every year, your insurance is going up, and tell them that. Say, look, I'm sorry. But eventually, I think you would get to where you're cash flowing very nicely on every property, but you do need to push those rents. I buy a lot of properties from tired landlords that haven't raised the rents in 20 years, and they're just over it. Because when a repair comes, you're doing okay right now, but the second a repair comes and now you're going into your pocket for that and you're going in the hole every month, you don't want that. So that's my encouragement for you. You do with it what you want, but I had to say it. I'm sorry.
I thank you for saying that. Sometimes I think, every investor kind of just needs a push once in a while, or, just permission, kind of, giving themselves permission. But I 100% agree. And I want to cash flow with this house as well. And
you're running a business. Just keep
exactly.
If you love these people, you live with these people, I respect everything you're saying, but you are running a business, and just don't forget that.
Got it. So some other things that are important when you're house hacking, and some things that I do just to make house hacking a little bit smoother, is actually offset the leases, right? So none of my tenants' leases are ending at the same time,
Oh, interesting.
right? But they also all end in the summer months. That way, it's easier to replace my tenants if they leave. So basically, the first one that
Really
came in,
smart.
I did a 3-month lease, and then the second one that came in, I did a 6-month. The next one, 8 months and 12 months. Right. So basically, none of them are ending at the same time, which makes it easier for me to replace them. But when the 3-month lease ended, then you renew them for 12 months. When the 6-month lease ends, you renew them for 12 months, right? Or if they don't want to stay, you get a new tenant and you do that 12 months. But it really helps to offset those leases so that your tenants aren't leaving at the same time. You're trying to fill all of these rooms at the same time.
That's scary.
I want to ask, how is the turnover in the rooms? Is like, because I know once you rent something out for a year, the turnover can be, I got to replace the floors, I got to paint. Is that like what you have to do? Is it pretty clean once they get out of there, or do you have to go in and paint or replace something?
So I do have my tenants give me a security deposit,
Mm-hmm.
right? First month rent, just like if you're going into an apartment. I haven't had to deal with replacing anything yet. All the rooms, they have carpet, and I don't think I would have to replace it just because it's a darker gray carpet. But probably shampoo that carpet, vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
If something did happen to the walls, like say a hole in the wall or something like that, then that would definitely come out of the security deposits. To fix that up, get a contractor out here to make that beautiful again.
Okay.
What furniture do you provide for your house hacks?
So in the common space, I bought a couch, which was a really great deal. And I spent about $900 on it, but it's beautiful. American Furniture Warehouse. I also have a fireplace, electric fireplace. I have a big, like 70-inch TV. I have beautiful, like the kitchen it's a really open space, so there's a lot of room, right? The dining room, I also have a table in there. I don't provide beds in the rooms, just because I feel like people are going to, want to bring their own beds.
Mm-hmm.
If they did need a bed, you know, yeah, I mean they will figure it out. But that way, people aren't leaving their stuff as well, like in the room. So I just furnish the common spaces only.
How commonly are people, excuse me, using the common space? Do they hang out in the living room and kitchen quite a bit? Do they mainly go back to their room? Like, I have never lived in a house hack, so I'm curious.
So some of my roommates do enjoy using the common space. One thing is when you're, gonna cook, it can be a little bit difficult because maybe some people want to cook at the same time. But like I said, it's a really big kitchen, which gives a lot of space. But my tenants have been very accommodating. We also have house rules, right? If you're going to cook something, you need to do your dishes or put them in the dishwasher, and keep the space clean, right? If you pick something up, please just put it back where you picked it up. I have had to have some conversations with some tenants, but I feel like you have to have those difficult conversations sometimes just to keep the house together and make sure that everyone's happy with the situation. But some of my tenants do hang out in the common space, and I hang out there with them too. But it's very important also to make sure that your tenants know that you are the landlord. You can be their friend, but really you are a landlord, and they're your tenants still, but you can develop close relationships with them. Just make sure not to blur the line between landlord and tenant.
So Al, let's talk about scaling. You said you want to get another one next year. You have 2 loans. How do you plan on getting the third one?
So the third one, what I'm thinking is in Colorado Springs, there's actually some really great properties with really good layouts. And basically, what I'm looking to do is get a DSCR loan for one of the properties that's 6 bedroom, 3 bath, kind of like mine. And what they do is they run the numbers for it as a short-term rental.
Really?
And yeah. So they run the numbers for it as a short-term rental. I've been saving up also for that, so I have cash for the down payment. But they run the numbers as a short-term rental, and then what you can do is you can make it cash flow by house hacking it, right? Obviously, I can't live there because it's an investment property, but I can essentially, put tenants room by room
Mhm.
and make it cash flow. I have a friend actually who's doing that actively in Colorado Springs, and it's been working out really well for him.
Buddy has a bunch of ski bum. Well, not Colorado Springs, I guess. Maybe more Summit County. It'd be cool to have a bunch of ski bums all renting a room. There's such fun people. I don't know about Colorado Springs. That's a big. I know there's a lot of athletes out there, though. I bet there's a big draw.
Yes. There's also a military base out there.
It's Air
Fort
Force.
Carson. Fort
Yeah.
Carson. Fort Carson is out there. I think the Air Force Academy is in Colorado Springs. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on out there. But ideally, I would like to, probably, get 1 or 2 more houses in Colorado. And after that, I plan to move to a warmer climate.
There you go.
I really do miss Savannah and, the beautiful city, the squares downtown, just, the historic buildings. So one of really where I plan to move is either Austin, Texas, Destin, Florida, or Savannah, Georgia.
Very good.
Those are going to be one of the places I stay. If I do move back to Savannah, Georgia, I will definitely be reaching out
Heck yeah.
to help me find a property that I can invest in.
Absolutely. Well, and
So
I'm sorry. Chandler, I'm sorry. You're hitting about one a year, right? Is that kind of your goal, Alice, to purchase 1 per year? And you're almost there, it seems like.
Yes, 1 property per year is my goal.
Great goal.
And as long as I do that, 1 property per year, when I look back, 5, 6 houses that I have tenants that are paying for, 30 years from there, I'm going to be pretty wealthy.
Yeah,
right? Pretty well
sure.
off. So I plan to buy and hold, not looking to liquidate my properties, but I plan to buy and hold. But, really, you make money when you buy the property. So if you're looking for properties, make sure to focus on buying properties that are good deals.
So I want to ask, you said those 3 areas, Austin, Destin, or Savannah. I know you said you want to move somewhere warmer, but is there a reason? Do you see some numbers going up there, or is you just like those areas?
So Austin is definitely an appreciating market for real estate. I have some friends who invest out in Austin, and they're doing pretty well. I've been to Austin. I love the culture around Austin, and honestly, the weather is nice, right? It's snowing over here. Well, it's not snowing, but there's snow on the ground over here, and it's 33 degrees. And I know you guys have some beautiful weather out there. So Destin, Florida. The reason I like Destin, Florida is I was actually out there for Ranger School, and it's near Eglin Air Force Base. So that's just a beautiful place,
Yeah,
honestly.
it
Yeah,
is.
and I could see that being somewhere where I live, where live comfortably, retire. And then obviously Savannah. I fell in love with the city of Savannah while I was in Savannah. And yeah, I plan to honestly at least own one property in Savannah. That is my goal.
Okay.
Well, Al, you've touched on one of my favorite subjects, so forgive me if I digress for a second. I love talking markets, and my market is Savannah, Georgia, but I make it my job to know other markets as well because I'm in the real estate business and I network with a lot of investors. I don't know much about the Destin market. It's just it's very touristy. I know it's a very good short-term rental market. I know about the short-term rental market, but I couldn't tell you about the rest. But Austin, and this again, we're recording this the end of October 2023, so things can change. But I want to say that Austin has had massive price appreciation. A lot of it is because of all the Californians that are moving there. The tech industry is like boom, the prices went boom, and it's deflating right now. I have a lot of friends that invest in Austin, and they're hurting. Interestingly enough, I would have never thought to say that because I do think it's a great. Texas is fantastic. They have very high property taxes, though. I don't know if you've looked at that, but Texas is one of the highest states for property taxes for some reason. But Savannah, if I can give a plug for Savannah, because that's my job, Savannah is a great market. We didn't used to be, you probably know this already, but this is for our audience. But Savannah didn't used to be much on appreciation. When I first started investing here, and for many, many years after, it was a cash flow play. It was not really an appreciation. We were seeing 3, 4, 5% a year, a little bit, you know what I mean? But nothing crazy. And Savannah still hasn't had a big bubble, just like Austin did, like big, huge blow up, which I think is better because now we're at a 18 to 22% appreciation year over year, 2 years running. Our port is very strong and industry is coming in, but we don't have this tech blow up kind of like Austin experience. So I am more of the turtle than the hare in the race where I like it to just be slow and steady, slow and steady. And I like cash flow. I don't like to go negative cash flow. A lot of investors, I know some investors in California that purposely invest with negative cash flow because they're just banking on that rapid appreciation. I get it. That's fine. But Savannah really is a great market. It's just really important to know your market before you start investing and seeing what the trend is over time, what industry's coming in, what industry's going out, things like that. So I just want to encourage you to look into that. I wish I had some stuff to say about Destin, but you've stumped me on that one.
Also, Julia, what is the average price of a property out in Savannah right now?
About $300,000 to $350,000. You can buy less, you can buy cheaper, you can certainly buy more expensive, but your average 3-bedroom, 2-bath is going to run you around 300, 350.
Awesome. And what kind of strategies do you see being used out in the Savannah market? Successful strategies right now?
It's tough to cash flow in any market, and it is tough to cash flow in Savannah. The great thing that I love this time of year is that things slow down pretty significantly. October through February, it is a lot slower. I see it every single year. And I tend to have my vacations during the holiday season, and I tend to be working the whole time because everyone's buying real estate. It's crazy. But that this is right now is where we're seeing things sit for 30 days or more. And that's when we're able to go in and lowball and get a discount. I wrote an offer last night for my couch, and it's been sitting 15 days and they're already stressing. And we didn't go 10%. We took about 5% off, but I am expecting an accepted offer just because it's a complicated property. But the longer it sits, the better the discounts we can get. So this time of year is actually a great time to buy. It's also when your average home buyer isn't buying, that's why there's a slowdown. So as an investor, if you can save up all year and just know in almost any market, I don't know about Colorado, maybe that's not the case, but most markets, their busiest buying season is March through, September. So that's when you're going to see the multi-ask, the highest price point. I mean, this is very common real estate sense that I'm speaking, but I see it every day in Savannah and I'm also seeing a lot of people that want to do the rapid depreciation. So they do want to close on something before the end of the year. And that's very possible. If it's on market, we can get it done pretty quickly. We have some great lenders too that can get the loans done in 30 days or less. So you can cash flow, but like you said yourself, and I agree, it's all about that purchase price. And then it's also about the strategy. You want to know your numbers going in. I can long-term rent this, I can short-term or medium-term rent it, or I can house hack. I would say house hacking almost always works with the numbers, unless you go buy a mansion. I mean, that would be an exception. But I've rarely seen where house hacking didn't work, just because you're able to bring in such a steady, high return on investment. So I really like your strategy. And for you to be a single guy, that's the absolute best way. I'm not able to do that. I'm not able to move every year. I would have to drag people with me. It's hard to house hack at that level. So I think you're doing, you have a lot of skills there that other people don't have. Plus your VA loan. Chandler and I are both very envious of that. That's really great.
The VA loan is super great. So if anyone out there has a VA loan in Savannah, Georgia, and you're looking to house hack, that would be a great market to house hack, especially if you're in the military. That's a great way to start investing in real estate.
I have a good question for you. One of my best friends, he's in the military, and he's actually about to go through Ranger School starting in January. And so he's looking for a house right now, and he's just making offers, but nobody wants to accept a VA loan. How do you kind of overcome that? Are there strategies that you use to kind of overcome that? Because he's just like, I'm making offers, and they take another offer because they don't really want to deal with the VA loan. Do you have any suggestions on that?
So the VA loan is a little bit more strict than other loans, which is, especially with the inspections.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that the property is livable. So, what I would say is, if he's really looking for, a property and he wants to get into it, maybe offer a little bit more in the earnest money to show that, hey, I am serious about purchasing this property. And, also if he can, write a personal letter to the sellers. I've seen that also. Okay. And, where it's worked to get someone into the property.
Yeah.
I have a
yeah. Go ahead. No.
A follow-up question. I have some thoughts. So Al, with the VA loan, I think it's similar to FHA, but are you able to put in your offer that you'll pay for any needed upgrades that are required by the VA? Do you know the answer to that? Because I don't know. Because that's what FHA.
Yeah. So if you have the money to be able to make those repairs on the property that are needed, that can definitely make your offer stronger to a seller, and obviously more likely to be accepted. If you have that money to do those repairs, that's definitely one of those things that you can do. Yes.
May I say, forgive me for speaking for veterans, I'm not one, but most people don't have that. But as an investor, you probably could have done that. Hopefully you didn't have to. But a VA is going to have to look for something that's been sitting. You've got a hungry seller. Any multi-ask situation, it's almost, impossible. And you can go over ask, but understand that the home is going to have to appraise, or you're going to have to still come up with that difference. So you can offer them 100,000 over, but it doesn't mean the VA is going to cover that 100. So it's good and bad advice. But yes, if you can tell the agent, like, I want a period of, let's say, 7 to 10 days where I can inspect it, and let them know, you can put this in the contract. I will pay for the, after it gets through due diligence. If the VA inspection requires repairs, I will pay for those repairs. You're going to have to close on that loan at that point, or else you're going to repair someone else's house. I mean, just understand, this is a risk. You might be putting in 3,000-4,000 into someone else's home, but that's a great way to get the deal done, where you remove the risk from the seller, because all they care about is that you're going to close. So if you're willing to put your money into their house, they're going to take you pretty seriously. I've done that several times with FHA loans, and they have accepted it.
Yeah.
It's having a hard time.
So another thing is, think about the money that you are saving, from the down payment while using the VA loan, so that money that you're using for those repairs, is going back into your house anyway, and that's improving your property. Another thing is the VA funding fee. So the VA funding fee is waived if the veteran or, not usually active duty, but if a veteran has a disability of 0% or more, then the VA funding fee is waived. So that's another bonus there.
Is that a pretty hefty fee?
I think it's
Probably.
1 to 2% of the loan.
That's great.
Yeah.
So having that waived is awesome.
Would you say it takes longer to get a VA loan approved? Does it take like longer than 30 days? Because your average loan is going to close within 30 days. What's your history with that, Al? Did it take an extra time or?
So my VA loan closed in about 35 days. So it was, not bad. And, honestly, I didn't have any trouble getting my offer accepted. And I think here's why, because at the time, interest rates were rising like crazy and people were scared to buy houses, right? And I feel like I've always bought when people are scared to buy houses, right? In 2020 is when I bought, like right when COVID started. So nobody was buying houses and they wanted to get out, right? They wanted to separate. No way they're staying together during COVID. They want to get a divorce. Perfect time, right? And then, when interest rates were rising like crazy, people didn't want to buy any houses, right? People were getting scared, like, oh, interest rates are going to continue going up. So, that's when I put in the offer to buy this house. And I really didn't have any trouble getting my VA loan accepted. And like I said, I was able to have the sellers increase the purchase price to cover buying down my interest rate, which is a huge benefit, right? So basically adding that into the loan, and then it appraised for $620,000, right? So still have some equity in the property. So yeah, it's great.
Good job you took advantage of the fear and you went in and you were successful. I have done the same. And it's what we have to do as investors. We have to be opposite to what the rest of the world is doing. If everyone's freaking out, we got to go hard for stuff. I've rented, houses on Airbnb that weren't ready to rent, but a hurricane was coming and most people were freaking out. And I was like, look, I'll furnish it, come stay. And, we made money when I wouldn't have normally. So absolutely.
Yeah, it's like Warren Buffett says, when others are fearful, be greedy. Right. And I forget the exact saying, but you guys know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Julie, have you had any hurricanes go through there recently?
The last hurricane that really was heavy was 2018. I live near Fort McAllister, and Fort McAllister took almost a direct hit with a Category 3 in 2016 Hurricane Michael. My children, I think, are still traumatized. It was horrible. And then in 2018, it was out to sea. It was a huge Irma, I think, or Ivan, but it hit Florida. But we got so many of the entrails, but really no. So the good thing about Savannah, prop for Savannah, is that, we're on the East Coast, but it's not a straight shot from Florida. The coast goes in and we're in the dip and then it comes back out around Charleston. Wilmington, North Carolina seems to take a lot on the chin because the hurricanes come up the coast and they don't tend to follow the coast. They're just heading up, the winds are hitting them out. So a lot of times we have the entrails of the hurricane, but to me, 2016 was the only time we really had it come right at us. Right.
It never follows that little swing.
It goes straight up. Right. And then poor North Carolina and
South Carolina, yeah.
And it goes boop. And it hits New York, New Jersey, but we rarely take one right on the chin. I think before 2016, I think it had been almost 100 years since we'd really had one. That was what they were saying at the time. So it's possible. We have flood insurance, though. May I say, flood insurance? It's like $600 to $900 a year. It's not flood insurance is not anything crazy. You're going to pay way more in property taxes in Texas than I'm going to pay in property taxes plus insurance plus flood insurance. I'd say you're going to pay double, maybe more. So we don't have the Florida insurance rates, and we have flood insurance, but it's federally subsidized. So it's not that painful to do the flood insurance. At least I don't like paying extra fees or anything, but I don't have any policies over like $950 that I'm aware of.
And Julie, just for my essay, so is it everywhere in, Savannah, like Richmond Hill, those other areas as well? Is flood insurance required?
Flood insurance, that's a great question. And we should talk about this more, Chandler. We never talk about flood insurance, but if you're in a flood zone, you need flood insurance. So it's not about if you're on the coast. If you're not on the coast, it's where does the property lie? So in Savannah, this is something you may or may not know, Al, is that the highest point in Savannah is actually Pooler. Pooler is 40 feet above sea level. That's where the airport is. There's a lot of industry there. Ironically, that's very close to the port, but Pooler is the highest, and the historic district actually isn't too bad. It's pretty high up, but then we have a lot of low-lying areas. We are called the low country. So depending on how many feet you are above sea level is going to indicate the likelihood of a flood zone. And so like my home is interesting because I'm close to the water, not on the water, but close. And part of I'm going to say like this, like my property is like a square, but there's only about this much that's out of a flood zone. And they put the house on that part, which is smart. So technically the house is not in a flood zone, but the yard is. Well, who cares if your yard floods? My yard has flooded many times. That's okay. But the house itself has been set on the highest point of that property. So they're actually very able to look at the map and see where you are and whether or not you require flood insurance. And they do change the table. So if you're very close to a flood zone, it's possible to get pulled into one, years later, but it's also possible to be in a flood zone and then be removed from it later as well. That doesn't happen very often. I would say every 20 to 30 years, but it is a little bit complicated. But any agent worth their salt can go into the MLS and tell you if you're in a flood zone, and also, tell you basically how much the insurance is. But I hear a lot more stress about the flood zone. And then when I discuss what the insurance actually costs, they go, oh, okay. And may I say, for Matthew in 2016, when we did get hit very hard, I happened to be in the part of Savannah that was hit the hardest, to my knowledge. I got 3 new roofs out of it because of my flood zone. And they were 3 old roofs. And I mean, old. So I was actually kind of happy because it was $40,000 or $50,000 worth of repairs that I got because I was insured, and we were okay. We had to cut some trees. It was a lot of hauling of trees, and nobody worked for several days, and the groceries, whatever. But anyway, I felt like financially speaking, we came out ahead on that amazingly. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's been almost 10 years now.
Yeah, no, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. I have some friends who live out in Pooler, also Richmond Hill. And those are beautiful areas that they're building a lot out there, especially near the airport. So I like those areas, and I like historic Savannah as well.
Well, and I think it's important for anyone, I don't care what market you're going into, but you have to understand the term, if it bleeds, it reads. Are you familiar with this, Al? You've heard this term?
I've not heard that term.
Okay.
Can you explain that?
Okay. Yeah. No, that's a news term. If it bleeds, it reads. So the worst case scenario is going to get top billing on the news, the newspaper, internet news, all of it. And I'm sure you've seen this in the military as well. You'll have one skirmish where 3 guys got killed and they get video of that, and that's all they're going to air. So you're going to immediately go, oh, this part is so dangerous because I saw in the news 3 guys bleeding, whereas everywhere else is probably fine. And so with the hurricanes, they use fear to control people, and they do want people to evacuate. So they go, worst case scenario, bleeding, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. I watched the Weather Channel a couple years ago. We had a storm coming, and of course they're showing models showing, oh, if we get a 9-foot storm surge, this is what happens. And they kind of are showing how cars floating away. We've never even seen this happen. But, they create the model. So the press is going to always elevate things. And I find here in Savannah, for example, when I say, oh, I used to live in California, which I did, oh, they're terrified of earthquakes. Well, in California, you don't know it's coming till it's there. But when I was growing up, we would see these huge, I remember, and when I was in high school, they had an earthquake in California, and a big part of I-4 just dropped into the ground, and there are cars down there, and it was really scary. But I never saw anything like that. I lived there for 4 years, never saw the ground open up and swallow cars. But the one time it did, that's the image that they're going to put in your head. So people here are scared of earthquakes, and people out there are scared of hurricanes. But we all actually live here and there, and we're all safe 99.9% of the time. So as an investor, when you're looking in a market, and like for me, maybe my fear in Texas is the property taxes, so I'm like, well, I need to educate myself on that. Do the rents cover it? Things like that. So if you do have a fear of a flood zone, educate yourself on it. Don't just automatically assume the house is filled with water 4 times a year, because it's definitely not.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for explaining that. And that makes a lot of sense, actually. It's so true. I remember some scenarios back in 2020 when we were in Iraq, and President Trump had just assassinated the general. It was a crazy time, but the news kind of blew it up to where, it was just totally different. So
right, you get it
100% right.
The way you view a region is so different. And this is a great example. I love Europe so much, and I've been there, and I've had people go, so are people just shooting at you on the street all day in America? And I'm like, what? But there's a lot of people that think that, because they'll see a shooting on TV, and of course they air it for days, and they just think, everyone in Florida is getting shot at. I've literally been asked that question at least 10 times, where they said, do people just shoot at each other because you guys have guns? And I'm like, what? That's just a great example of how the media will give you a perception and create fears that probably are really over dramatized. So anyway,
if it snowed like it is in Denver right now, which is probably not that big of a deal for you, schools are shut down here. Everything's shut down. Right. No driving. It's just like a big deal to where y'all are just like, oh, it's just a little bit of snow.
True.
I believe when I was in Savannah, I want to say it snowed one time. Maybe. I want to say, and yes, it was a big deal, for everyone.
Stops.
Yeah, just like a little bit of snow.
It's a great example, Taylor.
Well, Al, how can someone find you if they want to ask you some questions?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Al Real Estate Romero. Okay. And my Facebook is Al Romero. So definitely, if you're looking to reach out to someone, if you have any questions about military disability, I was a VA disability claims expert, so you can ask me some questions about that. If you're interested in house hacking and you want to know how to get started, a great book to read is The House Hacking Strategy by Craig Curelop. I think Bigger Pockets has that. That was a book that I read that really helped me out there. If you have any general questions about house hacking, tenants, master leases, please reach out. I have no problem answering your questions.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate your time today, and we always learn something when someone comes on, and we sure did today.
Thank you, Al.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Chandler.
Thank you.
Take care.
Well, thank you for watching today's episode with Al Romero, the house hacker. How'd you enjoy it?
It was great. I enjoyed meeting Al at Bigger Pockets. And as soon as we got talking about Savannah real estate, I said, he has got to come on our podcast. He knows this market well. He's always looking. And it was just a pleasure. I really enjoy learning how these guys think. I found it very interesting that he talked about being in debt 25,000, and I was assuming when he said that, I was assuming he was in the military when he was in debt 25,000, because I hear a lot of crazy debt stories from active military. And then he said, "Oh no, I was in debt before, and I went in to get out of debt." And I thought, well, I've never heard that before. That's a really interesting strategy, but he made it work. Like the guy has hustled really hard for what he has. I have a lot of respect for Al.
Yeah, for sure. He just changed his mindset a little bit. If you change your mindset just a little bit, you can do whatever you want, really. But yeah, Al made some sacrifices, and now he's doing pretty well.
Yeah, he's going to enjoy the fruits of that labor for the rest of his life. And, you don't look back on that. Like, that's just huge. Once you have those assets, it's just such a blessing. So it was an honor to have Al. If you enjoyed speaking with him, please reach out, follow him on social media, let him know that you enjoyed hearing him speak. He really is just a beautiful light in this world. He's very passionate about what he's doing. And it's been a pleasure getting to know him. And I can't wait. I know he's going to come and invest here in Savannah very soon.
Yeah, he'll be here. So if you enjoyed this episode and want to hear the next one, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also share, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you in the next one. Follow Sidwiz here 912 on Instagram for more of our content. Take care.